And let me just say, you were a legend. When I got to Berklee, I said, tell me about some of the alumni who've come through here. And of course, I knew many of the famous, like Branford Marsalis or Gary Berklee or Melissa Etheridge. But they said, there's this crazy guy from Romania who plays the pan flute. And they showed me those videos you did playing Spain and a bunch of other stuff. And I thought, oh my God, this guy is unbelievable. I got to meet him someday. I was a serious amateur musician and I loved music and I've always listened to it.
The moment I felt this welcoming, like you can play anything you want, you can learn anything you want, you can be anything you want. We accept you as you are. That was the first moment that I also said that I'm a gypsy, that I'm a Roma. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank you all, our listeners and the subscribers for joining us in this absolutely special edition of the podcast. It's a great honor for me to have an amazing human being. First of all, a man of a great value who has truly achieved a status of changing the world, both socially through the years of activism and charity projects, but also musically. Being one of the, if not the most prominent figure in the Berklee College of Music history, not being a Berklee College of Music family member. And this is the actual president of Berklee, Roger H. Brown. Thank you so much, Roger.
Thank you, Damian. Thank you for having me. And let me just say that one of the great joys of my presidency has been getting to know you.
Thank you.
Really.
So most of the people knows about you that you've been doing a great job. I mean, you've been, how shall I say in the right way? You've been changing completely the vision of Berklee. You've been doing amazing things, but maybe not lots of people knows, as I know, because I met you and we talk about your background and your beginnings. So I would love to start from the beginning, Mr. Brown, I would say so. And please tell me about your early beginnings at this point, about your the way where you were born. You were born in Gainesville, Georgia, and tell me about your childhood, please.
So I grew up in this small town of about 10,000 people. It's bigger now, but it was about 10,000 then. And it was in Georgia, state of Georgia, right in the middle of the civil rights movement of the United States in the late 60s and early 70s. I was born in 1956, so I was 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. It was a sweet childhood in the sense that I played Little League baseball and I played football and I was in Boy Scouts and I there were all these activities. It was a relatively simple town. We didn't have fancy schools. We didn't have what my children have had here in Boston in terms of their education, but we had a lot of people around us who loved us and took care of us. But against that backdrop of a very beautiful, simple, bucolic childhood was the civil rights movement and an awareness in me, at least, that the life I lived was not the life that the Black people in our town were allowed to live. And I think at an early age, I was also raised in the Episcopal church. And our church, it was a really good church. We had a good minister, and he was not like a social activist, but the way he preached, you could tell he believed that the society we lived in should be better and different. So I think I absorbed all those messages, and I decided I wanted to be, to do something. I always had bigger ambitions. I wanted to get out of that small town and go out and see the world. And I've always loved other cultures. I always think you learn more about yourself and who you are when you go to some other place. So I've spent a lot of my life traveling around the world and getting to know people from other places.
So I know that immediately when you graduated from Davidson College, you went to teach mathematics to the kids in Kenya, correct?
Yeah.
What was, I mean, tell me from your childhood, from the minister of your church, and then what was the driving motivation behind this type of action? I mean, a young guy, the moment graduates college, to have this drive to go to Kenya to help people. That's really something very, very noble. Very, I mean, there's something inside of you that I don't know. How did you find this inside of you?
Well, I think 50% of it was adventure. You know, I wanted to get out of small town America and see the world. I was, you know, musically, I had become very attracted to Black American music, and I was very influenced by James Brown and Sly Stone, and I was intrigued by the whole, you know, by issues of race. And there's a little part of me that thought, wouldn't it be interesting to be in Africa, you know? And then I also thought, okay, what do I know how to do? I actually studied physics in college, but you do a lot of mathematics. So I thought, okay, I can be a math teacher to high school kids.
So that was your academic environment.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, I can do this. It'll be fun. It'll be an adventure. I'll learn a lot. So, you know, it was the kind of like the decisions you make when you're 21 years old are not always super rational. I just thought, let's go do this and see what happens.
I'm sure it must have been an experience with all of it, with something from everything. I mean, like, first of all, the cultural shock, and then everything must have been upside down for you for the first year, or that year.
Yeah, it was a big shock, but a shock in almost in every way in a good sense. I was living in an even smaller village in Kenya, just outside of the city of Kakamega. And people took care of me. They cared about me. They were happy that I was there. They were proud to have a university graduate from America teaching at their school. So if I experienced anything, it was, you know, I was sort of like a king of the village. Everyone wanted me to come to dinner at their house, and everyone in Kenya, when you really want to honor someone, you cook a chicken for them. So everyone wanted to cook a chicken for me. So, and the trouble is, you get to their house and you hear the chicken squawking. So you know you're going to be there for 4 hours while they cook the chicken and feed you the chicken. So, so I had a beautiful experience, and I was really serious about my teaching, and I learned a lot about how you teach and how people learn. I had some very smart students, 3 of whom got admitted to the finest schools. And one of the goals is to get the students into these high exam schools where it's free. You know, ironically, it costs money to go to the ordinary schools, and then if you get admitted to the good schools, it's free. So I got 3 of my students admitted to those really good government schools.
Amazing.
And then I also started a company building concrete blocks. So I had some students who were not going to go to those schools. They were just not very academic, but we started this concrete block making business, and all those students were making more money than the teachers at the school within about a month.
Incredible.
And it was like, okay, we don't have to go to government school. We can earn a living, you know, building houses for people.
That's great. So I know after, I would like to touch upon your humanitarian reputation. After your MBA, you and your wife, Linda Mason, which I met her, and she's an amazing woman too, have co-directed a famine relief program on the Cambodian-Thailand border, working together with CARE and UNICEF. Mm-hmm. Please tell us about these moments, and you also wrote a book about this.
So having done the experience in Kenya, I kind of got a taste for that work and that life. It's super intense. You're around very interesting people. You feel like you're doing something important. You know, like in most of our jobs, you just do your job, and you know, it's fine. But when you're working with refugees who've had to flee their homes and have no food, no water, no clothing, it's just super intense. And while it can be very depressing, on the other hand, you just feel alive. You feel like, okay, I am doing something with my life that matters, and these people really need me. So Linda, we were not married at the time. We met. You've seen her. She's a very beautiful woman.
Yeah.
So I kind of fell in love with her. And I thought she had been living in Paris and she dressed beautifully and she was always, she always very put together. And she told me she wanted to go work in these refugee camps with me. And I thought, you can't last in a refugee camp with those high heel shoes and those fancy clothes. But lo and behold, she rolled up her sleeves and we went together with one other friend of ours. And we spent a year on the border of Thailand and Cambodia, helping the Cambodian people who had fled the Khmer Rouge, which you remember created this massive destruction and upheaval.
And you wrote also a book together about this experience.
So that situation was very confusing because you had Vietnam was occupying Cambodia.
Exactly.
The Khmer Rouge had really done a horrible destructive thing to the population. Probably 25% of the population died under the Khmer Rouge in 5 years. It was a genocide. And unlike most genocides, it was not racial in nature. It was not one religion trying to exterminate another. These were Cambodian people exterminating one another. It was an ideological genocide. So the Vietnamese were occupying inside Cambodia. Thailand didn't want many refugees. There were refugees on the border who had been enemies, the right-wing Cambodian groups and the left-wing Pol Pot Khmer Rouge groups, and they were fighting with each other, and the Thais were fighting with them, and the Vietnamese were fighting with them. So we spent a lot of our time just trying to figure out what is going on, who can you trust?
Pretty much a mess.
Yeah, a big mess, sort of like the Balkans or something, just like, it's hard to even understand who's fighting with who and why they're doing it. So we decided to write a book to try to both explain it to other people, but try to understand it better ourselves.
So then you decided to go to Sudan and working also with the Save the Children organization. They're an amazing organization. I've been working with them on numerous occasions myself. They are here in Romania. I'm also very good friends with Gabriel Alexandrescu, the president of the organization, and they've been doing an amazing job in Romania, where we have a big problem with the Roma community, as you know. So tell us about your Sudan experience, and then I want to move on to other things, other great things.
So Linda and I, at this point, were a solid couple, still not married, but we eventually got married. We had both been working in management consulting jobs where you go in and do analysis and tell other people what you think they should do. And it's an educational job. It pays very well. I'd been able to pay off all my college loans, and I learned a lot, but it was not gratifying in the way that the work we had done in Kenya and Cambodia was. So this is relevant because we were at a party on New Year's Eve. This is 1985. And a friend said, well, what have you accomplished this year? And I thought, not much. I've had this good job. I've learned a lot, but compared to what I was used to, like, working with refugees, I just feel like I hadn't done much. And I quoted from this song by the Talking Heads, you may find yourself in a beautiful house with a beautiful wife. You may find yourself behind the wheel of a large automobile. And I just thought, this is not the life I want to live. It's a fine life, but it's not for me. And so Linda and I set our minds to doing something different. And 3 weeks later, we were on an airplane to Khartoum, Sudan. It's like we thought of this idea, and the idea came to us. Save the Children called us and said, there's a famine in Ethiopia. Refugees are coming into Sudan. The famine is also now in Sudan. We need someone to open a program there. Would you do it? And we said, okay. We just said yes. And we left our jobs.
The gypsy way. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. Why not? Let's just do it.
Amazing. It was also an amazing experience, I suppose, no?
That was an amazing experience. And one thing I will say is, in every one of these experiences, even though I'm more of an amateur musician, but I was a passionate amateur musician. In every one of these places, I played music. I had bands that I was in, or I found local musicians to work with. I got to know two of the most prominent musicians in Sudan, and the son of one of them came to Berklee.
No way.
So that was so cool to be connected back to and Sudan has some amazing music. It's not well known in the world, but
incredible. So,
yeah.
so you are a world musician.
I'm a musician with a lot of. One thing I did everywhere I lived, I would always ask local people, like, who is the seminal musician who I should get to know? So, or what is a seminal recording? Or so, I kind of collected music and musicians from different parts of the world, and I would try to listen to it. And again, not in an analytical way, but just an aesthetic way, try to understand it. And I still remember I loved the time signatures of Greek music, and I fell in love with Astor Piazzolla when I was in Argentina. And in Sudan, I got to know this guy, Sharhabil Ahmed, who was one of their great musicians. In Kenya, I fell in love with all these different bands. And it's wonderful now because I subscribe to Apple Music. All this music is available. Very obscure music that most people don't know. You can find it and listen to it, and it takes you right back to 1979.
There is a lot of doors open right now towards the world music in general, and especially somebody who knows a bit about it. Then there are all these type of opportunities. Now there is open the entire universe.
Yeah.
Back in Boston, you co-founded Bright Horizons, which had some amazing results. And from understanding it has grown to know, and not only to provide the excellent services for children in need, but also to employees 33,000 people. So that was an amazing accomplishment. And to this organization, you also known that you have started several highly philanthropical initiatives and still managed to usher growth in your company. This has ultimately brought you some awards and amazing achievements in the following years. Please tell me about this.
Well, one of the things that you experience when you work in other countries, especially if you're an American, is you don't want to fulfill the stereotype of the ugly American who tries to tell everyone else what their culture should be like. So whenever you work overseas, you want to be respectful of the culture and not impose yourself too much. And at some point I felt like I don't want to be inhibited. I want to be able to be exactly who I am. I want to have opinions. I want to say this is wrong. I don't like it. But when you're in another culture, you don't want to be judgmental and say you shouldn't do it this way. At least I didn't. So Linda and I wanted to do something entrepreneurial in our own country, and the idea of childcare for working parents made sense to us because it allows women to be in the workplace. It allows couples to commute with their children to work so they can be together more. They can go have lunch with their child. It felt like on a social level, it was just as important as what we had done in Cambodia and Sudan, but it was in our own country, and it was a business, and we had a chance to sort of make our mark in that way. So it was very exciting. We did it for 16 years. The company still exists, and we have been involved and very proud of what the company's done. But it's been doing all that for many years without us. But it's always fun to see something you started
getting
continue.
Such an amazing accomplishment.
Yeah.
And actually, not only from here, we are not talking about a financial success or a material success. Finally, at the end, we are talking about an emotional success and a spiritual, because you've accomplished amazing things on a human level. I mean, touching the souls and lives of so many people.
Yeah. Well, one thing we did that I'm so proud of is, capitalism is a great system as long as you're part of it, So if you own a house and the house becomes worth more money, that's a good thing. If you're renting the house and it becomes worth more money and someone sells it and you have to pay more rent, it's not a good thing. So in our country, a lot of people don't participate in capitalism. They just watch it and they think, wow, I wish I had a little piece of that. So we gave stock to all the people who ran all the childcare centers. Literally thousands of people. And the day the company went public, instead of people criticizing us that we had somehow taken advantage of them, we got all these letters saying, I can now send my child to college. I can buy my first house. I'm going to buy a car. So these were like ordinary people making very modest salaries who finally got a little bit of a taste of that kind of financial success that comes from entrepreneurship. And that was, the financial success, it was good for us in the sense that we didn't have to worry. I could do things with my life that were not about earning money. But the most exciting thing was to see people say, wow, thank you. This is so great. And my father called me and he said, your company just went public. I'm so proud of you.
Unbelievable. Now, Roger, we're going to go on next chapter and talk about Berklee. But before that, after being involved and work with people from all types of backgrounds and points of origin, many of those people have not only faced issues with discrimination on a daily basis, but it's true that lately have been a considerable growth in social presence regarding discrimination activities and people starting to get more aware of these issues. I have to ask you, what's your take on the general events that has caused social movements in these regards? And also, what do you have to say about people facing these issues right now?
Yeah.
I know that you are really sensible because we talk about it, and I know how open you are to this subject.
Well, to be very philosophical for a moment, there's something deep in the way human beings have evolved that makes us tribal. And we form ourselves into small groups of people. And we have this initial tendency to fear other people, to not like other people, to think they're out to hurt us. And when we're small tribes of people living on the savannah, maybe that's okay. But when we're now 20 million people in one city, it's not a good thing. We need to get over that. So, in our country, the historical discrimination of people from Africa is shocking and upsetting. And it leads to so much social upheaval that doesn't need to happen. Now, out of that has come the most amazing music the world has ever seen, in my opinion. And I feel similarly about the experience of the Roma, also one of the world's most musical people, who have, everywhere Roma people have gone, great music has been created. But there is something that causes us to hurt each other, to oppress each other. And when the power, it may be okay when the power is balanced, but when the power gets way out of balance, it can really destroy cultures and people. So I think it's wonderful right now that we're going through this revelation where we say, I've often said to Americans, if you went to India and you saw one group of people who were all poor and one group of people who were all rich, would you think to yourself, those rich people must be so much smarter than those poor people? No, you'd say, there's a caste system. These people are oppressed. This is wrong. There are brilliant people in the lower castes of India who've never had an opportunity, but somehow in our own cultures, we don't see it. So while it's very difficult to face, and sometimes it makes you discouraged, I think the fact that the world is facing this, and it's beautiful. It's not just happening in the US. I see it happening everywhere. And people are saying, why is this? When people are oppressed and have nothing, that's not an indictment of them. It's an indictment of the system that has put them in that place.
Do you think, is there a way that helping everyone else, it's always impossible, meaning that sometimes you have to face these incredible hard sad truths and dark stories, and this frustration can cause many people to understand things about them and then starting doing humanitarian work. Like they say in Romania, we have a saying, where in the gypsy culture, always after rain, there comes sun. So, there must be this turmoil in order to get to a different level. I mean, in order to cross the bridge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is an inevitable stage of humankind where we now have 7 billion of us. And we're trying to figure out how we can live not in our own little separate countries with our separate languages and religions, but how you can fly to London and then Beijing and then Sydney and not have someone kill you or throw you in jail or mistreat you. You know, so we're trying to learn how to create a larger tribe of all humanity and take care of each other and take care of the place we live. And it's painful and it's not easy. It challenges us to, especially, you know, almost every culture has myths about why it's the superior culture on earth and why its God is the one true God that is more powerful than all these other people's gods. And it makes us want to go to war with each other or you know, when we live together, it makes us want to push one people aside and not give them opportunities. So it's a big transition we're making as a civilization.
I was reading a while ago Harari's book *Sapiens*, and I was thinking, like you said, about the tribes in the beginning, and the way he explains it, he highlights certain things very, very similarly to my culture, to the Roma culture, as you know, and I know that you are a big you are a fan of the Roma culture in general, not only musically. And one of the things that I wanted to share with you and ask you also debate about this is that everybody, it became a trend. I mean, the trend of let's say of the 60s and 70s, the Ram Dass and everybody, the flower power and the I love myself and love yourself. Now it became again all over a trend of I love myself, I'm enough, I love myself. But let's say that you are from a Roma culture or you are an African American, and how can you love yourself so much when you feel so much hate from the other people? And that's one of the questions that I've been thinking about and talking with some of my circles, with people from politics and opinion leaders back here in Romania too.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest problems with discrimination and oppression is this idea of internalized hatred, where if other people are mean to you, like let's say you grow up and you have something about your appearance that makes you unattractive to other people, and other people look away whenever they see you. It's almost impossible to not be aware of that and to not judge yourself and be upset with yourself about something that had absolutely nothing to do with you. So I do think figuring out a way for when we identify systemic racism and we say this is not about you and it's not about me, it's about a system that's been created that allows some people to have a lot of opportunity and other people not so much. I think then you can start to see things more clearly, and maybe you take away some of that internalized oppression. Or, you know, there was a lot of the great civil rights thinkers talked about sort of freeing your mind, taking the chains off yourself, that in some ways society may have put them there in the first place, but you may leave them there because of your experiences. And, you know, I've had a blessed life. And I really haven't faced too much of that, but I'm an empathetic person and I've seen it and I know what it looks like. I know what it smells like. So I think all of us, you know, anyone who's a caring, loving person has to say, this is awful. And think of all the, I think Frederick Douglass had this great quote. He said, you can't put a chain around another man's ankle without it ultimately ending up, the other end of it ending up around your neck. I mean, who wants to be in a marriage where you know, where one partner is just like a slave to the other? That's not a marriage. That's not a relationship. And who wants to live in a society where that's the way we relate to each other?
No equal opportunities at all.
Yeah.
It's not healthy. Now, The next question, the next subject would be about the Berklee College of Music, and let's bring the elephant in the room.
Uh-huh.
It's very challenging to balance the two big professional milestones in your life. Adding that what we already addressed, the president of Berklee College of Music institution, you are the first president of the college that does not come from the Berklee family. And tell us how you got into Berklee in the first place. And second of all, how were you able to have these amazing, amazing accomplishments and to change everyone's vision to do it like you did it? And also, when I came there last time, 7 or 8 years ago, I was amazed. I was like, this is insane what Roger did in 10 years or something. So please tell us about this.
Well, as we said earlier, I was a serious amateur musician, and I loved music, and I've always listened to it. And I even feel sometimes like it was irrational. Like, why do I care so much about music? But I do. And so I had finished my work at Bright Horizons. I felt like 16 years was adequate. Linda and I promoted 2 people to take over from us. So I was looking for the next thing to do. And I heard about, in fact, I read an article that mentioned that Berklee was looking for a new president. And I had taken drum lessons from a very, very talented drummer. You may know him, Tommy Campbell.
Yes, yes.
Tommy is one of the great drummers of his generation, and he gave me some lessons. And so I knew the place, and I knew some of the famous people who'd come through the school. And so I thought, I would love that job. I don't know if they would want me for that job because I'm not a Grammy-winning musician, and I haven't spent 30 years in higher education. But I said, who cares? I'm going to apply anyway. So I did. And I think that the board liked me because of a few things. One is, Berklee has thousands of international students. 36% of the school are non-Americans. And that number's growing. It was like 20 something when I got there. My goal is to get it to 50%. The world is 5% North American. Why should Berklee be 64%? So they liked the fact that I had all this international experience. I'd done a lot of work around cultural diversity, and I think I had the respect of a lot of the people who cared about diversity. I'd been an entrepreneur, and Berklee is a very entrepreneurial place, much more so than the typical college. And so I think they believed that I had all 3 of those things, and that I could learn the things I didn't know how to do. So they hired me, and I was not from the Burke family. And there was a myth that somehow the Burke family owned the institution. Berklee is a nonprofit college, fully accredited by the same people who accredit MIT and Harvard. But there was a little bit of this sense that it was a family enterprise. It was the Burke family business. And so I set about to make sure people knew just how great the place is, and to raise more money, to build some new buildings, to create more visibility, to actually expand and increase our international presence. And also to the roots of the college are in jazz. And we always need to be the best in the world at jazz. But jazz is about 1% of the commercial music industry now. And we need to train people to write music for video games, to be music therapists, to be music educators, to be music business people. And we need to, some people want to be pop stars, and some people want to play bluegrass music, and some people want to play old school R&B. So my thought was, let's be the best in the world at jazz, but let's also let people do whatever they want to do. Whatever they hear, they should be empowered to do that, as opposed to become a conservatory of jazz.
So also you built this huge online courses series, and you gave the opportunity for so many people around the world to be able to study at Berklee, and to have how should I say, access to everything that you have at Berklee. And at least for me, that I know I came to Berklee. I was the first Romanian, as you remember, in 1996, and I cannot imagine what it would have meant for me. That back then, it would have been an impossible dream. But even now, to be like from a country in Romania or anywhere else in the world, and to have access to all this great information and curriculum from Berklee online. This is an amazing way, the way you've been able to set up the vision and then to make it happen. Please tell us about this.
Well, I think it's wonderful when a person like you can come to the physical campus and be there. And there's really no substitute for that. However, as we know, most people in the world can't do that. They may have a family, they may have a job, they may not be able to get a visa because they live in Yemen or Iran or someplace that doesn't have friendly relations with the US. They may not have the money, whatever. So the online school is a great alternative for people, especially the working professional musician who started touring when they were 17 and never even went to college to study music, but they learned it, in the old-fashioned way on the road. But there is something to be said for taking a break and actually being in a classroom with other great musicians. And so I'm very proud of the online school because it gives access to thousands of people who wouldn't get that access otherwise. It costs less money. You don't need a visa. You don't need to move to Boston. You can continue working. You can take one course a semester or six. You can work as hard, or if you have a full-time job and a family you're raising, you can actually just take one course at a time. So it gives a huge amount of flexibility. And as you say, the technology we're using is so strong. It's not just lectures that have been recorded. There are all sorts of animations and games and tools and illustrations of the material, and a really well organized sequence of the syllabus and how you move through the material. So we get amazing feedback from students that they find it excellent. And so I'm very proud of that program. And I think in some ways, we're all wrestling with how expensive higher education is, especially in the US. This is a major solution because it costs 60% less than the physical campus.
First of all, as you said, it's not only some recorded lectures, it's the way you've done it that it's so almost interactive. That's the most amazing part of it.
Yeah, you get access to a professor, and the classes all have, on average, about 12 to 14 people in them. So you get a huge amount of individual attention. And if you're confused by something, you can go over and over it. If you get it, you can move through it very quickly. So it really is effective. And I think we're just, I'm proud of what we're doing, but I think it'll be a million times better 10 years from now because we continue to improve it and revise and refine it. And of course, the professors are the same people who teach you here in Boston.
So as you said, myself, I learned music the way I learned, by ear in Romania, in the gypsy weddings, and you know my story.
Yeah.
And I arrived at Berklee at 27 years old. So I got a scholarship when I was 26, December of 1996. And I arrived at Berklee August 31st, 1997, 27 years old, 27 and 5 for 6 months. It was exactly the day that Princess Diana had the accident. I remember that was the moment I arrived that morning there. And I know, as you said earlier, for someone that learned music by ear, when I came at Berklee, I remember that Steve Liebman at the time, remember Renores Better, said, the president, Lee Berk, wants to meet you. And I said, okay, there must be something very special. Let's go. And he says, Damian, I wanted to meet you because usually, in our papers that the team that came to Greece for the audition, they say he's a very good reader. He plays very well. He improvises. But on your paper was written only one thing: natural given God's talent. That was the thing. And but funny enough, like you said, the moment I arrived at Berklee, everything that I learned by ear, of course, in a different style, musical style. I'm talking about gypsy or Roma, and especially with the pan flute. The most amazing thing for me was the moment after the first day, when I went back to meet with Steve and Lawrence Bethune and the teachers and Larry Moreau, and they said, Damian, you can study here anything you want. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know pan flute. I know pan flute, I don't know piano or sax. It's like, it doesn't matter. We just want you here. You can play, you can learn anything you want. And Berklee was, from the first second, such an amazing, as I said in one of the interviews, you remember on Berklee Today, was for me like a family, because for the first time I felt accepted. I was 27 years old. I have never said until Berklee that I'm Roma or Gypsy. Mm-hmm. I mean, people knew in Romania, people knew in Greece. It was like I was, somebody with a red hat, but I never had a red hat. It's really weird to do that. Yeah. And at Berklee, the moment I felt this welcoming, like you can play anything you want, you can learn anything you want, you can be anything you want. We accept you as you are. That was the first moment that I also said that I'm a Gypsy, that I'm Roma.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and
you make a good point. A lot of successful international musicians have said something very similar, that they want to learn jazz, they want to learn American music, they come to Berklee and they learn a lot, but what they really learn is that they're very good at the music of their own culture, and that is really their destiny. And they can infuse some of what they've learned, but it's sort of what we were saying earlier. When you live in another culture, you see yourself more clearly, and you were free to see yourself honestly and accept who you are and be proud of who you are. I love that story. And let me just say, you were a legend. When I got to Berklee, I said, tell me about some of the alumni who've come through here. And of course, I knew many of the famous, like Branford Marsalis or Gary Berklee or Melissa Etheridge. But they said, there's this crazy guy from Romania who plays the pan flute. And they showed me those videos you did playing Spain and a bunch of other stuff. And I thought, oh my God, this guy is unbelievable. I got to meet him someday. And sure enough, we were able to meet.
Thank you. No, for me, Berklee was an amazing experience. I mean, first of all the teachers, they were like so welcoming. And I was crazy enough to study with George Garzon, who is like a giant of sax. And I went and I said, I was on the hallway, and I was going at the time, the chairman was at the wind department, Bill Pierce. And he says, who do you want to study with? And people, they were like, he's a pan flute player. He can study with a flute or whatever, something light. I'm like, no, but I like bebop and I like jazz. I like really Coltrane. I like really angry, angular jazz. And then all of a sudden I hear from another room, bebop, something. I'm like, something like that. Who is that? It's like George Garzon, but it's really tough. And he's a weird guy. You're never going to get a chance to be with him. So I went in front of his door and I waited for 11 hours. He got in at 11 a.m. and it was like 9 p.m. And I waited. And every time everybody was coming out, in, out. And he never got out. I'm like, God, he must be really weird, this guy. And finally, the moment he opened the door, I took the pamphlet and I started playing in front of the door. He's like, what the hell are you? I'm like, Damian, I'm a Gypsy from Romania. He's like, come in.
It's funny you mentioned George, because I think he's one of the kindest people on earth. He can seem intimidating to people.
I know.
He talks like he's right out of The Godfather. But he is an amazing human being and a great player. And I was just talking to him the other day. He's one of my favorite people at Berklee.
Unbelievable. I love him. And then Ed Tomasi was amazing at the moment when because I wanted to learn lots of jazz and bebop on the pan flute. Hal Crook was amazing. Lots of great teachers. Jamie Haddad, everybody. I mean, but one of the most amazing things was about Berklee, and that's what I want to emphasize also for students from Romania and here from the Balkans, because lots of people, they knew about this interview and they are waiting from Southeast Europe. Is that at Berklee, it's not about just going to learn music. First of all, this is the most important thing. it's about learning about yourself, learning about playing with different people from different cultures, learning that you can take a song, a gypsy song, and you can hear it in 1 week, played in a jazz, in a big band, in a fusion, in an Asian, in a Turkish way, in a Mediterranean way. I mean, it's like being in a chocolate factory, but a musical factory. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the dream come true for any musician that wants to experience. I mean, everywhere you go, it's music, talking about music, doing music, making music. You sleep music, you eat music, anything you do is music. And done at the highest level, and plus with a very ease, everything done very easy and very comfortable. There is no pressure. Everybody's really cool. And I can imagine that was 25 years ago. I can imagine the way it is right now. I mean, things must be even more so.
Well, I hope so. To me, the greatest thing about the culture is just that, great musicians from all around the world who care about different kind of music, just getting to know each other and teaching each other. I'm sure a lot of people learn from you, and I'm sure you learn from a lot of the other students. And so, yeah, that's it. You want to take that old-fashioned way of learning music on the bandstand, playing at a wedding, and put it in a school.
Exactly.
That's kind of the dream in a way.
And one of the things about this is that for me, I think another great thing it was, except the jam sessions and the teachers and playing with everybody and having fun and learning lots of things, it was about this openness of people, of becoming a fusion of friendship. Plus that at any moment, wherever I went, I've been touring, for the last 30 years, except those 4 or 5 years when I was involved in politics. I've been touring all around the world. At any second, I go on an email and I have a friend from Berklee, from Brazil to Japan to Canada to Kenya to Siberia.
Yeah.
It's like I have a network of people that wherever I go, I say, hey guys, I'm going to be there. Do you know somebody? And then the other guy, he gives me the phone number of another guy, and all of a sudden I get 5 people and I can put together a band anywhere. It's like, it's a really weird network. It's unbelievable.
I love that. I've continued to travel a lot since I've been in this job, and every country I go to, people will say, oh, the top session bass player in this country went to Berklee. It's just a beautiful thing. You meet all these great musicians, and they have that same, loyalty to the not to the institution, but to what the institution stands for. See, I think part of what Berklee's all about is almost every music school on earth was founded to teach Western European classical music, which is truly beautiful music and achieved a very high standard, particularly in harmony and composition. But Berklee was founded to teach jazz and the music derived from the blues. And that is a beautiful, amazing music in a very different way, with a different set of sensibilities. And we recognize that it came from the people who were brought against their will from Africa, brought all their musics from different parts of Africa. And there's this amazing fusion of sort of Celtic melodies and folkloric music with various styles of music that came from Africa. And so part of what I think is cool about Berklee is that, jazz is fundamentally improvisational music, where the question you ask is, I don't want to do it the same way twice. And the way European classical music is taught is you have to be able to do it the same way twice, 100 times, and never make a mistake.
Exactly.
Now, those are not the roots of the music. People will point out that Chopin and Liszt and Bach were all great improvisers, but the way the music education has evolved is all about technical proficiency. And I think with something like jazz and the blues and fusion musics, it's more about creativity, about doing something that hasn't been done before. And I think that's the ethos of Berklee.
You pointed this the perfect way, because I didn't study music before. I was a musician, professional musician, before coming at Berklee. But for me, the classical music and the harmony and composition and the theory, it seemed like a huge amount of music that oh my God, I'm going to need 10 years to learn it. And then I came at Berklee, and within 4 semesters, I knew everything. And it was like, what's happening here? Because the system Berklee has, you have such an amazing system that you can learn everything, not in a fast way, but in a normal way, but it's the way you rethink it, you rephrase it, or in a new way. And that's really great, because at the end you end up doing what you love: film music, pop, jazz, songwriting, but also you have the basics. You learn the basic of the classical music. So you have both worlds.
Well, you may know this, but one of the great classical concert pianists in the world today is a Berklee alum named Kirill Gerstein.
Yes, I know.
Who came from, I think, Moscow and found his way to Berklee, lived in the dorm with his mother when he was like 14 years old. Another story much like yours of, someone kind of against the odds coming and studying jazz with Gary Burton and then going back to classical music. And now he's one of probably the top 10 classical concert pianists in the world. So you can do that at Berklee if you choose to.
Exactly. Roger, please tell us about one more thing really important. I know that along the years as a president of college, of Berklee College, you've managed to raise immense amounts of money. If I'm not mistaken, on 2 occasions, once $59 million and once $100 million. So to be able to do such an amazing movement and amazing numbers, how you made it that possible? I mean, you must be very proud of you that you did this for the school.
Well, we shouldn't make a fetish out of raising money. Raising money is only useful if you use the money to do good things.
Of course.
So yes, I'm proud that we raised the money. I wish we had raised more. One of the amazing things about the American higher education system is we raise billions and billions of dollars from wealthy people to support poor students. It's really a great thing. Some people don't like it because it sort of symbolizes the excesses of capitalism. Why do these people have so much money in the first place? And those are legitimate questions. But when you're running a college and you meet with someone and they give you $5 million, you've had a good day.
Thank you.
Because you can take those $5 million and create scholarships for, several, 20 students. And those students can be people like you who come from some place where the per capita income in a whole year is less than the tuition we charge.
Exactly.
So it makes the place dynamic, because we have a kid from some rural village in Ghana who's never even been to Accra, and suddenly he's in Boston, and he, like you, is just like a naturally gifted musician, but who's never had an opportunity to study. So we were able to build some buildings. We started the Global Jazz Institute with Danilo Perez leading it. We started the Institute for Jazz and Gender Justice with Terry Lynn Carrington leading it. And one thing she's working on is, most music, jazz in particular, has been very discriminatory against women. And Terry is one of the great jazz drummers of history, world history. And she said, I'm tired of being the only woman. Why is this? We need to change the way we educate young people and say, you can play the drums, you can play the saxophone, you can play the bass. And look, we produced Esperanza Spalding. We produced Melissa Aldana from Chile, who's one of the great jazz saxophonists. So we're trying to take the money and turn it into something that helps people and makes us an even more dynamic environment.
What would you recommend for a young musician who wants to arrive at Berklee? I mean, from my own experience, I know that I was crazy enough to believe that I can arrive at Berklee. I don't remember if I told this story or not. There was one of these lead sheets that I found in 1992 or 1993 in Greece. And down here was written Berklee College of Music, Massachusetts. I could not even pronounce Massachusetts. It was like Massachusetts. I didn't know how to do that. And I look and I'm like, Berklee College. And I asked the guitar player, what is this? Oh, this is the school where Oscar Peterson, George Benson, everybody went. I'm like, I want to go there. Are you crazy? You're from Romania, you play the pan flute, you are in Greece, and you're never going to be able to arrive there. That was before the internet and before all type of information. And I remember I kept that paper and I was looking every single day. I'm like, Berklee College of Music, Berklee College of Music. I know now we live in completely a different era where it's really easy to access Berklee. And I want you, please, for the young generation and for the people that they are dreamers, what is the easiest way or how they should follow their dreams?
That's a great question. And as you point out, the beauty is it's a lot easier than it was for you.
Oh my God.
So the easiest and fastest thing to do is to go check out the Berklee YouTube channel. We have the biggest, most popular YouTube channel of any college in the world. And 3 times a week, we post things that students have produced. So you'll see all kinds of music done by our students. The second thing you can do is you can go to Coursera, which has these free online courses that are called MOOCs, Massive Open Online Courses. And Berklee has something like 25 or 30 courses. So you can take an introduction to jazz harmony online for free. Now, you don't get to talk to a professor, you just get to watch the videos, but the videos are very well organized and you can learn a lot. It sort of takes it up a level from just watching a YouTube video. And then if you want to, you could do one of the paid online courses, or there are tons of materials that you can access. There's the Berklee Press. We produce all these books about different instruments and different approaches to playing jazz, to improvising, to writing music, songwriting. So it's much easier today for someone to access this. But I'd say, number 1, go to the YouTube channel, and number 2, go to Coursera and take a MOOC.
So do you believe that younger generation are going to enjoy more classical music, or do you think right now people, they also come to study from, pop to mainstream to songwriting, fusion, film music, video games music, whatever type of music? What do you see is the trend?
I think the trend is music and media. Music that is embedded in video games, television shows. And there's this movie that came out this year that's fantastic called Minari, about a Korean family living in the South of the United States. And I loved the movie and I loved the soundtrack. And I looked up the composer. He's a young Berklee alum. So I called him on the phone the other day and said, man, I just love your music. You did such a beautiful job. So I think that's, from a professional point of view, one of the things we're trying to do is train people who can earn a living making music. So if someone has the chops you have, they can tour Europe and tour the world. But not everybody is meant for that life or has those kind of performance skills. So I think being able to write for media is probably the biggest trend. And then also things like sound design and
sound engineering.
Yeah, engineering, producing. Production has become such an important part of the whole creation process now. And then, I think there's a real strong link between music and technology. A lot of Berklee alums end up inside technology companies. The biggest employer of Berklee alums is Apple.
Wow.
Because they have Apple Music. They had, and then some of those students, though, they actually gravitate off into other parts of Apple, and they're not doing music professionally, but they're using the musical mindset to do technology.
Now, in 2014, I was elected as a member of the European Parliament, and I remember you sent somebody to Strasbourg to have an interview for Berklee Today. And then in 2015, I came at Harvard, I had a conference and and we met. And then in 2016, you had an amazing initiative and organized a Roma night, exactly in April on the International Roma Day. and I want to thank you, and I appreciate it so much. It was a great opportunity to play with the students and to show people what the Roma culture has been doing for the music worldwide.
Yeah.
I know that you are very open to this issue, and I know that you opened the Mediterranean Institute.
Mhm.
Please tell us before we end up, and I have two more questions about the Mediterranean Institute, and also you being open about the Roma culture. And I know that was a certain moment that you were supposed to relocate to Romania.
Yeah, two things first. Let's talk about Roma for a second. I did one of those genetic tests. I don't know if I ever told you this, but
No.
so my oldest ancestors, of course, are from East Africa, as is true for all of us. But then they migrated into northern India, and they stayed in northern India for a while, and then they migrated across Europe into the British Isles. So my dominant profile are the British Isles. My second dominant profile is Romania.
No way.
So you ask yourself, who are the people who migrated out of northern India into Romania?
Roma.
I think we're related. I think somewhere deep in my past, I have Roma roots.
Oh, Roger Brown is a gypsy.
Yeah, I think I am. And the life I've
travel
lived.
so much. That's why we travel so much.
And then, as I think I shared with you in the Obama administration, they approached my wife about possibly becoming the ambassador to Romania. And I love the idea because I thought, and I knew what a musical place it was. I knew you would help me meet everyone there. And I had been a wrestler in college, and I know wrestling is a big thing in Romania. So I decided, while you're ambassador, I'm going to go to all the wrestling matches and all the musical performances.
Music.
And the people are going to love me because they're going to say, this American guy loves our music and he loves our wrestling. But we had our youngest daughter was still in high school, and it was her senior year in high school. And she said, I don't want to move. I don't want to live in another country right now. And we thought she might want to go because she loves adventure too, but we just couldn't see, pulling her out of her final year of high school. So I'm still disappointed though, because I think it would have been so much fun. And through you, I'd learned a lot about Romania and Romanian culture.
Thank you again about 2016 when you had that initiative with the International Roma Day together with Magda Mataki at Harvard, and you push it and you made it happen. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important because it's sort of what we were saying before. One of the things we did at Berklee is we officially acknowledged the role of the music of the African cultural diaspora played in Berklee. And I think so much of what Europeans consider their music came out of the Roma experience, not only in Eastern Europe, but of course, flamenco and fado and all these other musical forms, tarantella. I mean, you're more of an expert than I, but it felt like I've heard this story before. I've heard about the blues and bossa nova and Afro-Cuban music and gospel music and all these musics coming out of this experience. And so it felt like, let's get to the root of where the music comes from and who the people are who created this music, and honor, given that some societies have not honored those roots, let's try to stand that on its head and turn it upside down and say, thank you for all that you've given us.
And thank you.
And not focus only on the struggle, but the joy and the beauty that has come out of the culture.
Thank you so much. It's funny enough that last September I had a concert. Was supposed to be last March here in Bucharest in a huge place on a stadium, and then was canceled due to the COVID. And we redid it in September, many days, and with the restrictions and the mask, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And during that moment, we played some music of the Roma, but really all music, the slave music.
Oh.
And the people in the audience, all of them, because the Roma music, as you know, it's full of joy and then full of pain, of sorrow. It's bipolar in a way. And at a certain moment, I stopped and I told people, I'm like, can you believe it? Because I was seeing the audience, especially after the in the middle of the pandemic. I've seen them, they were having tears in their eyes, but at the same time dancing.
Mhm.
And I'm like, can you believe that this music that was created out of pain 160 years ago, out of slavery, or 500 years of slavery, now it creates so much joy. It's really unbelievable, the antithesis. It's really,
And that's an exact parallel to the blues. The blues is a music of lament that lifts your spirits in some strange way. And I think there's something very human about our need to share the struggles we have. But there's so much beauty there. I think sometimes we focus only on the struggle and the hardship and the pain. And I think that part of what that festival was about was saying, let's just honor and celebrate this beautiful tradition.
thank you, Roger. I know that you plan on stepping down from the position as a president of Berklee. So what is next for Roger Brown with Roma roots? What is next for you?
Maybe I'll have to come do some hiking in Western Romania.
For sure.
I hear there's some
Anytime.
beautiful forests and mountains. You know, the thing I've been thinking about is how to support young artists like our students who are launching their careers through a use not only focusing on streaming, on crowdfunding, on videography and sort of a media dimension, touring, of course, but kind of building a base of fans who will support an artist. So even if they're not Beyonce or Taylor Swift, they can have a career. So I'm less focused on pop and hip hop and more beautiful acoustic musics, Latin music, African music, American music, American roots, what we call Americana. So I don't know. I've been talking to lots of people about maybe starting something up, and I might do that. My wife keeps saying to me, you know, you don't really need to do that. Maybe you should take it easy for a while. But I'm a restless, driven person, so I think I will probably do something next.
I'm sure you'll do something next. And if you need any, not that you need my help, but if you need any support, I'm there for you to help you do this worldwide or whatever. Two more questions, please. Throughout the years, you met such amazing musician from Berklee alumni to everybody that's been at Berklee, and also every year you have this amazing tradition of giving, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 honoris causa to different musicians. Please share with us one experience with one of the great musicians that you have. There must be one with some musician in the last.
I have so many of those, it's going to be hard to narrow it down. I mean, I had a 2-hour lunch with Chick Corea learning about his philosophy of music education.
Amazing musician.
I got to give an honorary doctorate to Aretha Franklin,
Whoa.
who turned out to be a really sweet woman. She had a bit of a reputation for being, but I found her really sweet. I had a magnificent 6-hour dinner with Barbara Streisand that was amazing. Just 6 of us, her husband and Jane Fonda, you know, the movie star.
Yeah, of course.
And I was sitting there thinking, I come from a town of 10,000, a chicken farming town in North Georgia, and here I am with 2 of the most iconic women of the 20th century. There's an amazing Chinese superstar, Wang Lihong, who went to Berklee, and we did a night of music in his honor. There's so many, and I have to say, Damian, just getting to know you and planning that concert with you, that was a real peak experience, and it felt true to who Berklee is. Because, you know, I always like to do things that no conservatory would ever have the guts to do.
Exactly.
So what can we do that Juilliard would never do? And so we've done a lot of things like that to really test ourselves and bring forward music that, you know, in some ways has not gotten the respect from the professional music education world that it deserves. It gets the respect from people. You know, when people vote, they vote for
Exactly.
for folkloric music. But anyway, it's been a beautiful experience. And you know, Pat Metheny is probably my favorite musician on earth. He and I have become close personal friends. I love and admire him so much. His drummer, Antonio Sanchez, went to Berklee, and Antonio and I are good buddies. Who were some of your classmates who have gone on to do
John Mayer.
Oh, yeah.
John Mayer, Javier, Jesus Santandreu. I had, at the time, I was also Antonio Sanchez was 2 years older than me.
Yeah.
Danilo Perez was like 3 years older than me, but it was still around Berklee. I had lots of great friends and people that are sound engineers, people that are producers. There was some amazing musicians. Plus, at Berklee, I met most of my people that my network out of Berklee. I started then to collaborate and to cooperate with most of the jazz musicians. I met there Dave Liebman. I started meeting in LA Dave Weckl, Vinny Colaiuta, Abraham Laboriel, and then we kind of connected to the people that they were alumni from Berklee, and somehow they start spreading the word around me. You know, there's this crazy guy that plays the pamphlet and plays jazz and whatever.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I was happy for you when you were a politician, but I think the world needs you more as a musician.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you so much. And I send my regards to your wife and to your kids. I know you are an amazing family man too. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for having done this for me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for whatever you've done for music. You've done amazing things for Berklee and for musicians. And I'm sure that many students and many kids and many families, they are grateful for the help and being able to share your vision with them and helping them. One thing that I want to ask you, what is the driving force behind all this for people to understand? What is your motivation? What is the driving force?
There's this great American poet named Mary Oliver who has a poem called The Summer Day. And the end of the poem is, so tell me, what will you do with your one wild and precious life?
So nice. Thank you.
So you only get one of them, at least, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe we get more than one, but I'm living as if I only get one.
Thank you so much, Roger. I really appreciate your time, and God bless you.
Yeah, same to you, Damian. I hope we get to see each other very soon.
For sure.
Okay.
All the best, Roger.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.